Good evening and welcome to We the People, brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. My name is Joan Higginbotham and I'll be your host for this evening's program. Well, it may not surprise you to know that Minneapolis is ranked as one of the top bicycle-friendly cities in our nation. Sometimes it surprises me, though, because of our long winters, but I see people riding those bicycles even on the coldest, snowiest days of the year. Well, tonight we're going to talk about two people that have helped to make Minneapolis so bike-friendly and what their plans are for the future. Our guests this evening are Latricia Vita, and she is president of the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition. Welcome.
Thank you.
And our other guest this evening is the coordinator of bicycle and pedestrian services, I guess you could say, for the city of Minneapolis. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Well, so what makes it such a great place to bicycle, Latricia?
Well, I would say one of the best things about bicycling in Minneapolis is the lanes, the trails. There's great bicycle lanes all throughout Minneapolis.
Now, there are two different things. I know I've read something now. I know trails and lanes. And what's the difference?
So the lanes are typically on the streets of Minneapolis.
Okay.
So those are the things you see next to your car in Minneapolis, the things you get frustrated about.
Right.
And then the trails are in the parks or, out on the parkways.
So that makes
that's
sense.
the
Like
difference.
a trail would be in a park, a lane would be in the street.
Right, correct.
Now, that's probably more your responsibility, I guess, Matthew, is that you're the guy that makes that happen in the city.
Sure, yeah, I work for the city Public Works Department, so we're responsible for building all of our transportation infrastructure in the city. And to expand on your question about what makes Minneapolis such a great city for biking, I would also just say the culture. So we have great infrastructure, but we also just have really great bike people in Minneapolis.
Really? Now, what is a great bike person?
Well, and I think it's an intangible thing in my opinion, because when people come to Minneapolis, I often hear people just talk about the culture of biking and how there's just so many people out biking. And then locally on bike issues, there's a lot of people that really get involved to try to help make the design of our roadways really great for all people. And I think that's a huge credit to the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition.
Well, I was going to ask Latricia to tell us,
Sure.
maybe we'll get back to the streets later, but tell
I would
us a
love
little
to.
bit about what the Bicycle Coalition is.
And so the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition is exactly what Matthew just explained. That's a part of our role, is to build around those advocacy issues, to get people engaged and involved in those infrastructure issues, getting people out about bicycle lanes. If there's a project going on, say 3rd Avenue, we want to get the community engaged. We want them to have a say on the safety, what's going on those lanes. We work on open streets, Minneapolis. When those great events that go on in Minneapolis where the street is shut down and you see people only biking and walking and having a great time, you see the vendors in those neighborhoods out, providing food and having these festive events. So that's a part of the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition. That's an event that they coordinate so the neighborhood can get engaged in biking and walking in their neighborhood and see the neighborhood in a different way. Also, the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition is really committing to having women and people of color engaged in the bicycle movement.
So
a lot more.
It's not just skinny white people anymore.
Not just the dudes. That's what we call them. Like Matthew.
Well, we call them mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra.
Exactly.
Well, so now, you brought up a good point earlier, and I always, there's the green thing. I thought I couldn't drive my car there, but that's not the case, is it? The green strip on your, what does it mean?
Sure, so I think you're referring to what we call conflict markings. So they're dashes, so green dashes leading up to an intersection. So a few years ago we did a bicycle crash study where we looked all across the city to see where the crashes were happening and what some of the causes were. And what we found is that some of the worst crashes in the city were related to what we call a right hook, where a person in a car comes up and takes a right across a bike lane, and it's typically at an intersection, and so that's where the conflict is, or a left cross. So a car taking a left comes across the path of the bikes. So where you see the green dashes, that's one of our attempts to highlight that is an area of conflict.
But it isn't that you can't go there, it's just that you have to be careful there.
Well, you're actually, yeah, exactly, you're supposed to be careful there, but you're actually required by law to move into the bike lane at intersections when you're going to take a right. And so that's in Statute 169, if people are interested. And I think people often think that they're not supposed to ever go in a bike lane. And while you're not supposed to drive your car in a bike lane, it's really important at an intersection that you don't just drive across a bike lane.
So best for you to look both ways and then get into the bike lane when that dotted line means that you can go into the bike lane with your vehicle.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's the one thing I think. The other thing is there's some terminology here that I thought was really interesting. So it says there's the protected bikeway. Now, what is a protected bikeway?
I would love to team up with you on this one. Do you want
Go
to
for
start?
it.
Okay. So you brought up earlier, I believe, Bikeways for Everyone, and so that's a campaign that the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition is running in support of a citywide goal to develop or implement up to 30 miles of protected bikeways by 2020. And so that's a lot of miles.
How many do we have now?
Really quickly. We have about 6.
Whoa,
about
okay,
6.
we've got a ways to go.
And I'm talking like in the street protected bikeways.
Okay, so that's what we, right.
Sure. So a protected bikeway can be a trail because it's protected from traffic. That's the key distinction. But what we're really moving towards in Minneapolis is to connect the recreational system that kind of follows the river and then the lakes like Calhoun and Harriet. We're trying to connect those really wonderful trails to the places people go every day. The grocery store, library, park, things like that. And so this initiative, this Bikeways for Everyone campaign, came out of that desire to get people riding more, people that don't currently feel comfortable riding right next to cars in the lane. And so that's where protected bike lanes come in. It's a physical separation from traffic. And so that could be, I don't know if you've seen those white bollards. I know you've seen the white bollards. Have you seen the white bollards?
Well, I saw some pictures on your website of planters with flowers in them or something. Is that what some people do to make a protected bikeway?
Yes, that's another concept for protected bikeways.
And I mean, and I can understand why that would make you feel much more secure because no car is going to drive into those white barriers.
It's
Right.
protected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. So you're working on getting more of those, and that's one of your initiatives with the
The Bicycle Coalition, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so during Open Streets, we actually set up protected bikeways that way so that people can, we actually set up traffic so people go through it that way. We set up displays so you can go through and see it protected that way and actually get feedback from people on their bikes.
So they can
So
see
they
what it
can
is, how
actually
it works.
see how it works. Yep.
Well, now you said that the open streets. Now this is something new. It's not been going on real long, has it? What exactly is the open streets, and where and when does it happen?
So there's several open streets, and this is going to be the 6th year of Open Streets. We celebrated Open Streets' 5th year anniversary, I believe, last year. And so this year, how many Open Streets events do we have? We added
8.
a couple. Yeah, so we have 8 Open Streets events. We have Lindale Open Streets. We have we have downtown open streets, we have East Lake open streets, we have Northeast, we have Franklin, we have, for the first time, Broadway open streets in North Minneapolis.
Wow.
There used to be Lowry, but we switched it to Broadway, which is amazing for North Minneapolis. We have Nicollet open streets, and then we have the University of Minnesota open streets.
So how many streets are there? Is it like a block, or is it like a mile, or?
It's different in different neighborhoods.
But you can ride your bike in that area then?
You only ride your bike or walk. And so the streets are completely blocked off. And then the stores and different, businesses.
Like a festival, really.
Yeah, right. So the stores and different businesses come out in the streets and set up tables and food and whatever. And people in the neighborhood or not from the neighborhood come and enjoy those things in the streets.
And I know that the list of all the streets and when it happens is on the website, which
Yes.
we will have on at the end of the show. So if you don't get it now, you can look there and find it on the website.
Yep, definitely.
I just wanted to highlight, to use the word festival, which I think, I just want to highlight the purpose of Open Streets. So Open Streets closes down the street to motor vehicles and it opens it for everyone else. And they're really strategic events to celebrate the public right-of-way in a different way. So people get to experience the street without cars. And they're some of our most busy streets in the city.
In the
so
city.
as you heard, you can't often picture Broadway in North Minneapolis.
Right.
being
That's
free
the
of cars.
busiest street in North Minneapolis. Like, this is a huge deal for
Would be
North
something to
Minneapolis.
close it down.
I mean, Broadway is like the street in North Minneapolis. I mean, it's
How do
the
people
street.
feel about this if they're driving cars? Do they get upset?
People love it.
Oh, great.
People love it. I mean, it's welcomed in every neighborhood because it's a different, I mean, like, it's just a different adventure for a neighborhood to see that street closed down and to be able to walk and to be able to enjoy it in a different way and to be able to bike on those streets and to, I mean, it's just a different experience. We welcome you to an open streets. And one of those open streets adventures. I call it an open streets adventure.
Well, this is something definitely people should take advantage of.
Definitely.
And a piece that Latricia brought up, we actually use it to support protected bikeways. So there's these pop-up protected bikeways that you were talking about. The intent there is for people to be able to experience at open streets what this could be like, and then it really helps make my job at the city easier because then we can demonstrate that there is support, that people are actually asking for and really wanting this type of safe infrastructure for everybody. So it's really it's an encouragement activity that's really strategically aligned with the infrastructure that we're trying to build, and that's why it's such a cool relationship, I think, between.
Now, do you get lots of pushback? I mean, I read in the paper, oh my gosh, they're changing the streets and now we don't have as many lanes because they've got these bicyclists, and so that must be one of the things that you have to do is to get people to think in a different way about what streets are for.
Well, of course, nothing's easy. You get pushback for everything. But I think, people come to agreement on things. You get support from the community that you're getting lanes in, and people realize that we have to accommodate for everybody. Some communities there was only one lane for cars at one time, right? And then they went to 2 lanes, and so now we have 2 lanes and a bike lane. And it's fine. So we always get pushback, I think, for things at times.
For any kind of change.
For any
probably.
kind of change.
Now, there was another thing that I thought was really interesting, the bicycle boulevard. Do we have many of those, or is that something that we're working on doing?
Yeah, so we do have a fairly robust system of bike boulevards in the city, and there's likely more to come. And I think, like a protected bike lane, a bike boulevard is what I would term a low-stress route. And what that means is, like, you're not that stressed on that route. So when if you're out here just outside this building on Central Avenue, and there is a bike lane, I wouldn't classify that as low stress. I mean, you really have to
watch what you're doing.
Pay attention to what you're doing. But if you go a couple blocks over onto what we call the President's Bike Boulevard, which is actually my route home, it's a residential street that parallels this really busy street. And so it's much more comfortable, and it's just a better experience for a much bigger section of the population.
That makes very good sense, because you don't want to be driving where you're competing with semi-trucks and buses and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So that they're called bicycle boulevards because they are a street that is just adjacent to a real busy street?
Yeah, often. And there's some other things that we can do. So it's an already low volume street, so there's not a lot of cars.
Now, how do people know where they are? Or do they just go to another street and they call it a bicycle boulevard?
That's a great question, and it's one of the features that is included in bike boulevards is signage, so people know.
So there's going to be a little sign that says bicycle boulevard?
It's more, it's things like, so on my route into work, like I said, I live in Northeast, I work in downtown Minneapolis, there's signs that say, Stone Arch Bridge this way, and so every time you have to make a turn, there'll be a green sign showing which way to go. And then on the way home, it says St. Anthony Parkway this way, and so there's different little things, and then also a bike symbol on the street sign. So there's different ways to alert.
So we should be looking
people,
for those signs. Well, now, one thing that we were talking about beforehand was I was saying that I knew somebody who didn't learn how to ride a bike until he was grown up, partly because his family couldn't afford to buy him a bike. So how are we getting kids into bicycling at an earlier age, or even families? Do you have like give a kid a bike program, or do you have like lessons for how to ride a bike, or what are we doing to get more people onto the bikes?
So that's a really good question. The Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota is a statewide bike advocacy organization that does a lot of really great stuff around education, among other things. And so they're working throughout the state on a program called Bike Walk Fun. And so they actually go into schools throughout the state. Many schools in Minneapolis participate in this, and they teach teachers. So they teach a curriculum that teachers can take and then teach that to the kids. And so it's really important basic skills for kids, such as like how to ride with traffic and
Yeah,
how
I
to
was
pay
going to say,
attention.
it's not just learning how to ride the bike, it's learning
Right.
how to be safe.
Right. So that's one of the main programs specifically targeting kids. But we also do a lot of the health department in Minneapolis, along with Minneapolis Public Schools, works on a robust Safe Routes to School program that also encourages our kids to bike and walk to school.
And are more kids doing that, riding
Yes.
bikes to school?
Oh, yes. They just had a huge kickoff tonight in North Minneapolis. They ride bikes Wednesday nights to school on the north side,
Oh.
and they had a big ride tonight.
Great.
Yep. And on the adult side of that, I help coordinate a program that is along with Nice Ride for adults who know how to ride a bike but want to maybe get a little healthier and save some money on transportation costs. We do a program called the Nice Ride Neighborhood Program. So if people live in North Minneapolis, if they are at least 18 years or older, they have a safe place to store a bike, we loan them a bike for the summer. We provide them the bike, we give them a lock and a key, we give them a helmet and a backpack,
Wow.
and all they have to do is participate in 4 community events that we organize, and they have to ride the bike at least 2 times a week by themselves, and that's based on the honor system. And so if they successfully complete, we give them a $200 gift certificate towards a bike of their own at our local North Side bicycle shop, Venture North. And so that's a program that, it's a pilot program through Nice Ride.
That is a great
yep,
idea.
and we're in our 3rd year. It's a great program. We're up at about 200 participants
Wow.
on the north side. So that's a program that I do along with Nice Ride. It's called the Nice Ride Neighborhood Program, and it's called the Orange Bike.
So it's not the green bikes,
It's an orange bike. Yep, it's an orange bike, and so they take the bike home with them. They keep it in a safe place. It's a great program. We just kicked it off last week, and so yeah, we're starting that program, and that's to build a bike community, you know, in North Minneapolis, to get people out there looking at bikes in a different way and seeing it as a means of transportation. So on that bike ride, we take people to Venture North. Venture North is about a mile away from where we have the orientations at. Now in a car, it'll take you about 15 minutes to get there. On a bike, it's about 5 or 6 minutes.
Really?
People are surprised at how fast you can get on a bike in a mile.
Wow, yes.
Typically, you think, oh, I'm going to get there much faster in a car. It's a car, it's way faster. But you don't think about the traffic lights, you know, all the things you go through to get there.
Well, and then parking once you get
the
there.
parking, everything. And so it's amazing how people are amazed at how fast they get there. And then we usually get people who haven't been on a bike in years, and they get on it, and it's just like riding a bike. That's what people say,
Yeah,
right?
they say
Just
that
like-
once you learn, you never forget.
It's just like riding a bike, yeah. So it's a great program.
That is so good.
Yep.
Well, now what about the health aspects? I know that must be another really good reason why people bike.
We were just talking about that when we were waiting on the doorbell.
Yeah.
We were talking about the prevention aspects of it, right? Like if we could get people on bikes earlier, we would probably save costs early on with healthcare issues. And so this is a great way to lose weight. This is a great way to reduce a lot of heart disease and, you know, other things that come, especially with communities of color who deal with a lot of healthcare issues later on in life, you know. And so I use biking for a tool to definitely will in populations of
Well, now you
color.
said you went biking with your mom.
I went biking with my mom for the first time in my life. My mother joined the Orange Bike Program. I didn't even know my mother could ride a bike. And I was so anxious. I'm like, do not embarrass me when we get in this parking lot. Are you sure you can ride this bike?
Well, as you said, once you learn how,
And she successfully completed. She got her $200 gift certificate.
Oh, wow.
And she beat me out last summer. She called me and she said, have you been on your bike yet? She was out riding her bike already last year. So this is her 2nd year biking.
now do you find that to be true? I mean, are you seeing an uptick? I mean, we are top ranked already. But are more people starting to use their bikes for transportation even in the wintertime?
I think so, and I think focusing on the winter is a big goal of mine in this role as bike ped coordinator.
Tell me more about that. I just can't get into that.
Sure. Well, I think there's been some surveys done where people were asked, why don't you bike in the winter more often? And I think a lot of people would think about cold, right? Like that would be like the first thing. But a lot of people said that the condition of the roadway is their top deterrent, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm interested is, because I can't change the cold, right? We can't make it.
No,
like,
that one
warmer
won't
out.
happen.
But we can think about the condition of the roadway, right? And so what we're doing in Minneapolis this year is looking at a winter study, basically looking at winter biking and walking maintenance practices. So how well do we clear sidewalks? How well do we clear protected bikeways? How well do we clear the roadway? And try to see if there's things that we can sort of learn about how well we're doing now or not doing now, so we can change our practices to make it more convenient and predictable that you're going to be able to ride on a clean surface in Minneapolis. And so one of the things that I've noticed this year in particular, even though there wasn't a lot of snow, we could still kind of, we got a lot of good data. But one thing is the bike boulevards. So the bike boulevards don't necessarily get cleared right away. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to look into is like, could we identify a set of priority routes?
Right.
That's an option. I'm not sure we're gonna
Well,
go there.
because I was looking at my street and I was thinking to myself about the winter ride, and that whole bike lane was now full of snow. I mean, because when they shovel the snow off the street, they don't get it all the way to the curb, and what gets covered with snow is the
Right.
bike lane.
Well, and one of the, I know we keep plugging protected bikeways, which I think is good and intentional. What we found with the protected bikeways is that they are very plowable and that they can get plowed. And so in Minneapolis, we have different sized equipment, right? So if we have a two-way protected bikeway, like on the University of Minnesota, we can fit a regular truck, like a pickup truck in there. But maybe we have a one-way protected bikeway that's a little more narrow. We have a Bobcat that could get in there. And so we're looking at the different types of equipment that we need to make sure that we can clear so that people have that predictability.
That must be it, because you could start out from your home and it would be fine, and then you could get halfway to your route and
Right.
no bike road.
Right.
Well, now, is that something that you're advocating for in the Bicycle Coalition? To better winter driving, so to speak?
Better winter driving?
With your bicycle? Is that an issue? I mean, are you advocating that the city does a better job of keeping bike lanes open in the winter or making it possible for people to...
Oh, definitely.
to
We
ride
always want better, for sure.
12 months out of the year?
Oh, definitely.
And
Yes.
we had the opportunity and I guess the honor to
Yes.
host the Winter Cycling Congress, right? And
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, it was amazing. People
yeah.
from all over the world were here for the, it was the International
International.
Winter Cycling Congress.
Well, so I hope that we had really clean streets for them to bicycle on.
Well, we didn't have snow at first, so it wasn't nice. They wanted more snow, and then
was too nice.
It was too nice, exactly. And so then the snow fell down, and it was amazing.
It was you couldn't have planned better, right?
Exactly.
It snowed 8 inches. Like it was the
that
biggest.
was the biggest snow of the winter,
biggest
probably.
snow of the winter. And so we had people from all over the world that really care about biking in winter, and they were out there like watching Public Works clear the snow, and it was just, it was just a really cool experience.
It couldn't have been better, because when it started, it was like, what happened? There's no snow here. And then it just came falling down, and it was the best.
And how did we do? Did we keep those bicycle lanes clear?
Well, I think we wanted snow. We just wanted to bike on snow. That's what did us in.
Now, the
for the
other
best.
thing I was thinking about, and that it's always puzzled me, is I would be afraid, I wouldn't know how to put my bicycle on either the light rail or the bus if I were going to do it. Do you have instructions? Like, can people go someplace and learn how to do that before they actually take the bus and their bike?
I think you can. I think there's classes out there for you to learn how to do it, and then there's like instructions on the light rail to show you how to do it. On the bus, I don't know if there's actual like classes to show you.
I would be so
but-
concerned that my bike would fall off.
So I mean, Metro Transit, like they will often bring a demonstration for their buses so that you can try it and things like that. But one thing I'll say is don't be too pressured. So
Yeah.
I remember the
You'll
first time I
figure it
used it.
out.
Do you remember the first time you used it?
Yes.
Like it was nerve-wracking,
Yes.
But you figure it out.
Yeah.
I promise you will. You'll figure it out. It's so the other night, the first night of the Orange Bike session, there was a guy. He was like, "I'm so nervous. Does this bike?" Because the bike looks a little different than normally. The bikes you see on the road. This guy, he was so nervous. He's like, "Can this bike fit? Are you sure it can fit? I don't want to be embarrassed." I said, "I promise you, it fits." He's like, "The bus driver's not going to help me." So I said, "I'll stay here. I'll wait with you in case it doesn't fit." And I know it fits. I've seen it fit. And so he said, "I've never done this. I promise. I'm nervous." And I said, "I promise you, it's going to fit." And so the bus driver stopped. It snapped right in, and he was like macho man, He's like, "I did it." I was like, "You did it." I gave him like a little celebratory. I gave him a party out on Olsen Highway, but it's easier than you think it is.
Well, that's good, because that seems like that could be tricky, and I would have exactly the same feeling that your
Most people
guy
do.
did, that
Yeah.
that it would be, and I'd be more afraid that the bike would fall off and the bus would roll over it, is what I would be afraid
I
of.
always say, watch YouTube. There's videos for
That's
everything.
probably true, too.
a good
There's
point.
probably a video.
Watch YouTube. There's a video.
There's probably a video for everything. Now, and you said we want to really increase the number of bike miles that people have in the city. Is that one of your chief goals, that you're going to have? Now, I said double the biking by 2020. You said we want to go from 6 miles to how many?
Well, so the goal is up to 30 miles.
That's what I thought you said.
So last year, the city council passed a plan. So we developed a protected bikeway plan that was an update to our master bike plan. And so in that plan, that's where that number came from, so up to 30 miles.
So 30 miles of bikes. Now, we're almost at the end, but what one quick thing should we change? Or should we do?
The one thing you should do is you should bike to work with a buddy on May 20th for Bike Week.
Okay, what a great way to end the show. So get that bicycle out of the basement, that's where mine is right now, and get it tuned up and start biking. And thanks to our guests for being with us this evening, Latricia Vitale, and she is president of the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition, and Matthew Deardahl is the coordinator of Bicycle and Pedestrian.
Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator.
He's the Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator. And I'm Joan Higginbotham for the League of Women Voters, saying thanks for tuning in to We the People. Good night.
Yeah.
I hope it's the 20th. Everybody's biking to work on the wrong day.